where. Obiero ayuaguita la wai babai. Obiero anto wane wa ayuaguita la wai babai. Nyethendo neng di gwen ya erem gito chwer. Nyethendo neng di gwen babai do rem gito chwer. Oh, below Louis, I give one that talk it out. Oh, below Louis, give one that talk it out, bye. On Diego Boro, it all on in that and that. On Diego Boro, it all on in that and that. No way.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Charlotte County. I'm Ginger Abraham, Chair of the Worship Committee, and I am your worship leader this morning. Our progressive, welcoming, inclusive, and judgment-free congregation is a liberal religious community of diverse and free-thinking individuals. UUFCC is a spiritual community where reason and social justice matter. As people who learn, love, share, and serve together, we welcome all into our family. We begin our service each week by singing an invitation to gather together, even as we are scattered in many different places. Let's sing Enter, Rejoice, and Zoom in, and don't forget to clap and do the jazz hands. Samara Michelson is our worship associate today. She will share our chalice lighting words. You will have an opportunity to light your own chalice at home after we light the chalice here.
Good morning, everybody. The chalice words today are by Rebecca Savage, written for the Promise and the Practice program, which centers voices of color. We light our flaming chalice as a beloved people, united in love and thirsting for restorative justice. May it melt away the tethers that uphold whiteness in our midst. May it spark in us a community, I just lost my place, sorry. May it spark in us a spirit of humility. May it ignite in us a radical love that transforms our energy into purposeful action. This is a chalice of audacious hope. This chalice shines a light on our shared past, signaling our intention to listen deeply, reflect wisely, and move boldly toward our highest ideals.
Join with me in our affirmation. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our aspiration to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. Our opening words today come from I Too Am Beautiful by Kristen Harper, that was originally published in the UU World. My inner spirit wrote, I have spent my life watching you, seeing your accomplishments, living the way I think you want me to. I have watched the way you move and the way you talk. I have listened to your story and learned your history. I have sat patiently as you explained your politics, your religion, your philosophy of life. I have walked with you on a journey of faith, waiting for my turn to share, to explain, to lead. Look at me. I am Black and you are white, and I too am beautiful. Look at my face, my hair, my clothes. They may be different, but aren't they worthy of your gaze? Look at my walk, the way my hips sway to the music in my soul, the way my proud neck tilts to the sun. Yes, look at me. Look at my darkness. It contains light and love, rebirth and growth. Look at my pain. Don't turn away. Look at the way you see me. I am human. I have tears and fears. I have laughter and joy. Look at me and walk with me. I too am beautiful. So I'd like to welcome anyone who might be new visiting with us this morning. I think we've already had one person identify herself. So if you'd like, you can now, if you're that person or another new person, say hi in the chat, give us your name, where you are, and how you happen to find us. And you have lots of people saying hi right back to you. You can do that as we share our next hymn. A couple of weeks ago, we had the privilege of hearing Lift Every Voice and Sing. This time we're going to sing it again, but this time it's by our own UUFCC choir. And with Linda Himes' wonderful, wonderful talent demonstrated. So while the song is playing, those of you who are new can introduce yourself.
Lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let all rejoicing rise, high as the listening stars. Let it resound loud as the roar.
Wow, that song always does a lot for me. Each week we have been featuring a different member as a member spotlight to learn more about each other. And this week it's my pleasure to introduce Laura Learman and let her introduce herself to you.
Hello. If you're familiar with my history, feel free to go get a cup of coffee. As with most of us, our childhoods define us in so many ways. Mine involved moving. In fact, 19 moves in 17 years on this planet. Add to that college and after college moves, and I'm now up to 33 moves. To explain, my father was an Army officer in the Military Assistant Advisory Group. It was called MAG. They analyze world events and advise the general in the Pentagon. I'm sure you've heard of the infantry and all of that. Well, this group's motto was make paperwork, not war. As a family, we were lucky to be able to go where he was sent, all but his 1 year in Korea. Our overseas tours included 3 places in Germany, where I was born, Saigon, Vietnam, from 1959 to 61. And if you're old enough to remember, yes, as a captain, he was one of those advisors who took pictures to send to Washington when guns were shot and bombs were thrown in a bloody coup down our street. I was in 1st grade, and my younger brother and my mother and I spent 2 or 3 days on the floor playing games as they shot through the shutters. Anyway, we were fine. We were also sent to Karachi, Pakistan after the Indo-Pakistani War, and Okinawa. Possibly slightly less glamorous, there were 4 moves in Georgia, then Indianapolis, Philadelphia, Fort Leavenworth, and Denver. He worked at the Pentagon for my 2nd grade, 6th grade, and 11th grade years. So Virginia became a familiar anchor of sorts. My devoted parents met at Syracuse University. I mention this only to bring in my mother, who is now 90 and was the only woman among 200 men to graduate with an industrial design degree there. Her Army lifetime, however, involved packing, unpacking, hanging pictures, making curtains, getting my younger brother and me settled in school, exploring the area, and then packing again, every time, every place. An industrial designing job was out of the question. Jill Biden has pledged to help military spouses bridge these hurdles, especially when it comes to licensing. I was excruciatingly shy, still and somewhat, so facing new classrooms constantly was a torture. Only twice did we live on posts where I could play and go to school with other Army brats who understood my experiences, my people. I survived and actually thrived when it was time for my civilian peers to enter college. By then, I was seasoned and knew that new friends would be found and life would go on. I received a kindergarten through 8th grade teaching degree through University of Colorado, University of Northern Colorado, then a master's in curriculum at University of Wisconsin-Madison. I started teaching in Colorado as a 20-year-old, long ago, and ended my career teaching gifted students in Western New York, Nova Southeastern University School in Fort Lauderdale, and 15 years in Charlotte County as the only pull-out gifted education teacher for all gifted kindergarten through 3rd graders from all of the 10 elementary schools here in this county. Punta Gorda's 4th and 5th graders were added to the mix for 12 of those years. In fact, Ginger and I shared students. 3 years after a soap opera divorce, I was lucky enough to have Don walk into my children's life, as he was a widower with 3 young girls. Okay, he was actually looking for a daycare, which I ran 2 houses away from his, but the rest is history. Easily the most important history in my life. It was his turn to do the talk in the past, so rather than go through all that again, just know that after 34 years, I love being his wife still. All right, pandemic puts a little bit of pressure, and being a mom to our now grown 5 kids. And I have to admit that grandmotherhood is certainly a lot easier than motherhood. Now to the religious life business. My mother was a devout Roman Catholic and my father an angry agnostic Protestant. Not a mellow combination. As it turns out, I was raised Army Catholic, And to understand this, you have to realize that chaplains, including priests, have to be able to conduct all religious ceremonies, whether it's Jewish, Muslim, Shinto, or Southern Baptist, particularly out in the field. Thus, they tended to be very liberal or at least open-minded. Plus, their congregations were almost all 19-year-olds at the time. So UU is very familiar and comfortable to me, even without those 19-year-olds. I love being among thinkers and doers. I appreciate all the ways that you guys keep this place going so I can enjoy the friends, acquaintances, choir, learning, and the committees that have enriched my life completely and allowed me and my gerbil activity to keep moving. Yes, I've been here in Port Charlotte 16 continuous years, a record, and look forward to many more at UUFCC and all it has to offer. Thanks to you guys. Can you tell that I'm on the stewardship committee? Thanks for my time in the sun.
Wow. Thanks so much for sharing, Laura. As much as I've known you, I learned new things every time I talk to you. Now is the time to share joys and concerns in the chat feature as the music plays. When the music is over and you see the picture of the chalice, please observe a minute of silent reflection, followed by singing Spirit of Life while on mute, of course. Not hearing anything. Why are we down? Do you- The chalice picture for the chalice picture. Can you share the chalice picture? One great purpose of the world's traditions is to bring humanity closer to the divine by acts of creation and compassion. One purpose of this congregation is to encourage all who gather here to grow more and more generous in both spirit and in action. Even during this pandemic, when we can only gather virtually online, we take an offering that allows us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that supports this congregation and our many ministries. You can make donations by mail, by auto payment through your bank, or you can give electronically using the Venmo app on your smartphone. Thank you for your generosity. Okay. So my husband, James, was scheduled to speak today, but he's not. He's way past deadline for his book and realized this week that he had bitten off more than he could chew. So you're stuck with the second string this morning. I'm sorry. I hope you're not too disappointed, but I'm thankful that at least you can't throw rotten tomatoes on Zoom. So this morning, I want to share with you some of the work that the Widening of the Circle study group has been doing over the last 6 weeks. If we were together here in the sanctuary, I would ask the approximately 20 people who participated to stand, but I guess all they can do right now is wave their hands. So go ahead and wave your hands so we can see who you are. Chapter by chapter, we've been studying the report of the Commission on Institutional Change that was released last summer, utilizing the study guide produced for the UUA. Some chapters have been more scintillating than others, but the one we discussed this past week was especially illuminating. It was the chapter on religious professionals that revealed the plight of UU professionals of color and some of their trials and tribulations. It came as a complete shock to most members of the study group that there were, and I quote from the report, patterns of inequities and abusive conditions in which ministers who were Black, Indigenous, or people of color worked. End quote. As an example, I would like to share a homily written by Rayla D. Matson, a Black woman who serves as the Director of Religious Education for the Unitarian Society of Hartford in Connecticut. It was part of the Promise and the Practice worship materials written entirely by people of color. Although the incidents she recounts did not occur as part of her encouragement of her employment, they reflect some of the kinds of painful and traumatic events experienced in UU settings by religious professionals and others who are people of color. So it's titled, Tired of Being Silent, Rayla D. Matson. The summer of 2016 began as an exciting one for me. I was finally going to a beloved Unitarian Universalist conference and retreat center. I'd heard many wonderful stories about it, and I couldn't wait to bring my 3 children with me. On the drive there, I felt excited about spending a full week in an entirely UU space. After all, it was my UU community that so lovingly embraced me after a very painful divorce and several painful years of church shopping. I needed this week. I needed this healing. As UUs descended on the camp and found their rooms, I began to introduce myself to others and thought I noticed them giving me a cursory hello before making a quick getaway. Maybe I thought it was hard for people to speak to me because I had a 1-year-old in tow. Maybe they were eager to reconnect with 2 old friends. There was one other Black woman at the camp who I had noticed. I was thankful we both signed up for the same program. I asked her, was it just me or did she too feel a distant coldness from the others? I wanted to make sure that I was not being paranoid. But unsettling things continued to happen. There was an issue with my daughter in childcare. They felt she was a problem and difficult in comparison with the other children. Although a very kind person noted that she couldn't understand how my child was deemed a problem when she was doing the same things all the other children were doing. Then a Black child the same age as my son, 12 years old, came crying to me one night. He was being bullied, but he wasn't being heard because the adults around him insisted that they knew that girl and she would never say those things. The child trusted that as a Black mother, I was the only person at the camp who would listen and believe him. I brought the matter out in the open. The typical excuses followed, like the boy misunderstood what she meant and he was just being too sensitive, and it was just in fun and nothing was really meant by her comments. I tuned those excuses out, and I spent a lot of time alone that week. When my daughter and I walked around the conference center, I saw reminders of racism everywhere, from the statues and memorials to the paintings on the walls. It was everywhere. It was clear as day. Your kind are not welcome here. I would end my strolls by going to the dining hall, only to find there was no table for me. Not because there weren't empty chairs, but because I was told that there was no room at the table for me and my toddler. The empty seats were for other people, I was told, and they couldn't make room for me. The pattern became so distressing that on most days I considered not eating, but I couldn't let my child starve. If my new friend was there, she always made room for me. And there were the kids. After the incident with the young Black boy, the kids came to me quite a bit to mediate things going on between them. They even took turns giving me a break for my little one. Eventually, one of them would see me trying to find a table, and no matter how many people were at their table, they would find a way to squeeze me and my little one in. As kind as they were, they ate quickly and were off. And again, I was left alone in the silence as all the tables around me buzzed with talk and laughter, and I sat there alone, staring at my 1-year-old. Then one evening, my youngest finally settled down enough for me to attend the evening worship. I was so excited, I grabbed my lantern and journeyed to the chapel. The guest speaker spoke so eloquently, talking about what he called the elephant in the space, how the camp was rooted in racism. His words brought me to the edge of my seat. I was thrilled and excited. I hadn't been paranoid. This white man saw what I saw. He was naming my hurt, my truth, and I was elated. As we left worship, my heart felt light. In the darkness that surrounded us, the voices started. I heard campers who couldn't see me, a Black woman listening, agree that it was one of the worst services they had been to at the camp, and how they couldn't believe he dared to say those things, and how they, who come to the chapel to be uplifted, did not want to have that kind of mess thrown in their faces. I melted into the darkness that surrounded us, and that night I cried myself to sleep. When I left the camp at the end of the week, the knot that had formed in my stomach started to ease. Once home, I shared my story, my truth, with multiple people who were connected to the camp and its programs, people who I believed might use my experience to make future conferences and retreats more welcoming. I even offered to teach to add more diversity to the future retreats. I was told by each person that they would pass on my information and have someone contact me so they could get a better idea of what happened and how I felt so it wouldn't happen to others. That never happened. I sent several emails and responded to all the surveys and asked to be heard. But as usual, when I bring up concerns about race, there was only silence in response. Fast forward nearly a year and the approach of another summer. My oldest 2 children chatted excitedly about going back to the camp. Although I had explained that it took 2 years of funds and planning to go, they were still hopeful that we could make it work for this summer. I felt anxious, I felt guilty, and I could feel that knot creeping back into my stomach. I wanted them to see their friends and go back to a place that they had come to love, and yet I could not see myself stepping foot in that retreat center. I broke down one day. I shared with my 2 oldest children my experiences of the previous summer. Their father is white, and at times I choose not to tell them things that I feel would cast a negative light on white people, so as not to give them negative feelings toward their family or be torn about their own genetic makeup. But I could be silent no more. As I shared with them my experiences and my time at the camp, they sat there, not saying a word, but staring at me with silent tears rolling down their cheeks. They asked me why I didn't say anything during our week at the camp. Why hadn't I shared with them sooner? Like a lot of parents, I answered that I wanted to protect them and not give a negative light to such an enriching experience they had had. My oldest child then asked me if I often sit in silence and hold in the pain. I answered him truthfully. I answered with a yes. Many times as a Black woman, I hold in my pain and my experiences to protect others, to keep and hold up the white fragility that I have been taught, or rather trained, to value more than my own feelings and my own experiences, more even than my own needs and self-worth. I have been trained to minimize myself, my light, my voice, to just grin and bear it, to put up with it because I should know that they mean well, or I didn't want to seem too sensitive or be the angry Black person in the room. But I'm tired of being silent. It's a heavy load to carry day in and day out. Sometimes I'd like to take off my Blackness and pick it up another day. Sometimes it's just too heavy a load, but I can't, so I press on. So I ask this question whenever someone will listen. Who is standing in your dining hall looking for a seat at the table? And can you make room for them too? So at our study group this week, we took time to really think about if and when we as individuals had had teachers, leaders, and/or bosses who were Black, Indigenous, or other people of color. We examined how those experiences or lack thereof might affect our potential relationships with UU religious professionals from these groups. It was a very thought-provoking session all around. So I close by asking you to personally reflect on Rayla Matson's question. Who is standing in your dining hall? And can you make room for them too? Blessed be. We will now have closing words from Samara.
Ginger, I can barely talk. That was so beautiful. Thank you. You are not the second choice to James, I'm just saying. So our closing words tie in with the second of our UU principles, which is justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. This passage is from the book So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijoma Oluo, which is the February choice for our book group, the UUFCC book group. And it's meeting this Wednesday, and it's not too late. It's a quick read. It's not too late to read the book and join in for this Wednesday. So You Want to Talk About Race. It's an awesome book. This is her words now. Do you believe in justice and equality? Because if you believe in justice and equality, you believe in it all of the time for all people. You believe in it for newborn babies. You believe in it for single mothers. You believe in it for kids in the street. You believe in justice and equality for people you like and people you don't. You believe in it for people who don't say please. And if there was something I could say or do that would convince someone that I or people like me don't deserve justice and equality, then they never believed in justice and equality in the first place. Thank you.
We'll now have our announcements for the life of the community. A reminder that there is an art committee meeting after the service today. And we have a message from the stewardship committee. Alan Searle's going to share some information.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
As some of you know, this year's Stewardship's theme is based on Gene Kelly, or more to be more specific, his song, Singing in the Rain. The theme for the Stewards Committee itself is actually a community still singing in the rain. The Stewardship Committee consider this quite appropriate for what we've been going through and how we've handled it. And by the way, did you know that when Gene Kelly was filming that Dancing in the Rain, he had a fever of 103? I think that's quite appropriate during a pandemic. And obviously Gene Kelly and us have survived and show what can be done. So you should be getting information packages soon about the Stewardship Drive, which will begin on March the 7th. But what we really want from you is to see you singing and dancing in the rain. Now, we don't want any broken umbrellas or even worse, broken hips, but wouldn't it be great to see us all doing something else other than staring at our Zoom screens to show we have a life somewhere else? So please could you send us any pictures of yourself singing and or dancing, or movies of you singing and dancing. It doesn't have to be in the rain, it could be in the sun. And if you're stuck somewhere up near Canada, maybe it could be dancing in the snow. Please send our contributions to the office, your contributions to the office, and we'll show them during the Stewardship Drive. Now, just to hopefully encourage you, we have made a short video to get you going. Please, can we show the video?
Okay.
Okay, Jerry, let's do it again for the fellowship.
I'm sinning in the rain. I'm sinning in the rain. What a glorious feeling to be naughty again with a smirk on my face.
Jerry, I don't think that's it. I mean, look at the script. There's a G in it. Let me have a go. I'm singeing in the rain, I'm singeing in the rain. What a wonderful feeling, I'm toasting again with jam on my face.
Alan, I don't think that's it.
Well, clearly we need some help. Is there anybody out there who would like to help? I guess with that.
Okay, I look forward to those videos coming out. There is this afternoon at 3 p.m. on this same Zoom link, there's going to, and each third Sunday of the month, committees of the UUFCC are organizing a movie viewing, and there are going to be movies with a message. The February selection is Cherche la Vie, Looking for Life, directed by New York filmmaker Sam Ellison. This documentary shows the broken asylum process in the USA. 2 Haitian migrants find themselves stuck in Tijuana. Reviewers praised the film as portraying the migration of thousands of Haitians who went to Brazil after the 2010 earthquake in Haiti. After working in Brazil to prepare for the Olympics and the World Cup, many traveled north through Peru, Panama, and Mexico. The film follows 2 such migrants. It is a personal story of friendship and patience in the midst of injustice and upheaval at the border. It is a refreshing, calm take on controversial border issues. Please join us on Zoom for this unique and moving story. That's today at 3 p.m. on this same link. And if you forget, you can always check the calendar on the UUFCC website to get the Zoom link. And now we extinguish the chalice. I'll get my little tool here. We extinguish the chalice, but not the light of hope, the fire of commitment, and the warmth of community. May those ideals shine in our lives and warm our hearts until we are together again. We will now have our community benediction song, Go Now in Peace.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. Let the Spirit of us surround you everywhere.
So God willing, the creek don't rise. Reverend Dan will be back on the spot next Sunday. But for now, I'm going to use his closing words. His benediction, he always says, is to be good to yourself and to everybody who you live with, because they're stuck with you. If you'd like to join the social hour, just stay put. And Jackie, our new Jackie